This is the continuation of Every Leaf, Every Wing, Every Soul, a Revival of Life. All right, we're just picking up where we left off. A tree's orb is normally broad and slow, anchored to root and canopy, but certain trees, the very ancient ones, the ones standing at ley lines, grid nodes, or intersections of mycelial currents, develop a Merkaba that's huge compared to their size. That geometry can lock into the planetary grid and touch adjacent layers of the fractal. When I enter that space in a receptive state, the gate can open. It's not about the bark or the trunk, it's about resonance. My own Merkaba has to match the tree's frequency long enough for the fields to overlap. When they do, I feel a stillness, a pull, sometimes a sense of stepping sideways. The mycelia network under the forest act like wiring, carrying memory and stabilizing the field. A tree's branches act like antennas. Together they create a toroidal conduit between realms. In ancient times, this is why groves were sacred, not superstition, but technology of the living earth. So when I hear stories of shamans entering a tree to travel, or myths of world trees linking heaven and earth, that's not just poetry. It's describing a real energetic process. Certain plant nodes acting as bridges, living arcs between nested realities. They don't open for everyone. They open when the resonance match is right, when the gatekeeper tree recognizes the frequency of the soul approaching. The story of incarnation is not linear, but laddered and spiraled. Souls shift between forms, learning textures, mineral, plant, animal, human, until the field learns to hold complexity in love. Some souls move upward by refining individuation, learning responsibility for choice and relationship. Others evolve through deeper communion, remembering how being one with a collective also contains the seed of one. When I teach about orbs, I remind people, look for tempo and boundary. Where is the field fast and self-reflective? Where is it slow and communal? Understanding those distinctions doesn't make one life lesser or greater. It simply maps the way consciousness expresses itself through the great variety of forms. From that map, I learned how to honor the wide, strange choir of life that sings through plants, animals, and humans alike. Microorganisms carry soul orbs too, but they are micro-scaled and often expressed collectively. In my map, any living metabolically autonomous system carries a spark field, a micro-orb. That orb is subtle and tiny, often more like a distributed nodal post than a human ego. Bacteria, protozoa, single-celled algae, each can carry an organizing field, and those micro-orbs scale fractally. The Merkaba is geometric, not strictly physical size dependent. A microbe's Merkaba is proportionate to its scale and nested inside the enfolding Merkabas above it. That means individual bacterium can have micro Merkaba. A colony of biofilm can form a shared group Merkaba. A gut biome or a pond ecosystem can hold a larger integrative Merkaba that coordinates many micro souls. Life is nested like Russian dolls. The smaller the orbs live inside bigger orbs, and their harmonics interweave. Parasites and replicators are boundary cases, as in they're not really alive, but they look like they're alive. Many viruses and strict parasites do not carry sovereign orb of their own. They operate like code, replicators that hijack host machinery. They have information and agency in the narrow sense, but they lack that persistent, self-organizing, individuated spark that marks a full soul orb. That's why parasites feel programmatic. They ride and redirect living fields rather than sustain their own sovereign light. Everything alive nests into the next level. An atom carries proto-harmonics. A cell has an organizing field. A multicellular organism holds a composite orb and Merkaba. A species, a grove, or a planetary biome holds a higher level of life field. This is not a cutoff. It's a continuum. Life is a fractal of enfolded orbs. That's what I was explaining earlier. They're all like inside of each other. I also see how templates and inanimate forms participate in this process. A piece of matter is first a pattern, an information template, and energy flows through that pattern. That pattern determines how energy organizes. Slow and tightly bound becomes solid. Freer and quicker becomes liquid, gas, or plasma. Even inanimate things participate in mind because they are instantiated templates inside the great minefield I call Maya, and so does everybody else. They carry information and reactive intelligence, but that is different from an individuated soul. So I separate two concepts on purpose. Template information field is everything with form carries this. Stone, tools, water, crafted objects. They host pattern information and have kind of a template consciousness, but they're not like aware. Sovereign soul orb plus Merkaba, a persistent, self-organizing, individuated field with volition, memory, long-range identity. This is what living organisms from microbes up through trees, animals, and humans all carry. Water deserves its own line. It's the substrate, the memory medium, a carrier for templates. Water holds imprint and resonance and acts like the divine hard drive of embodied systems. Water itself is not usually an individuated soul unless it organizes into self-regulating living systems like us. But it actively stores and transmits information across templates and living fields. We know this, right? Water holds memory. Why this distinction matters is simple. If a stone is a conscious template, I relate to it differently than I relate to a dog with an orb, right? Different orbs, right? Different types of orbs. Ritual, ethics, and repair practices change based upon the kind of field I'm addressing. Stones and tools respond to pattern attunement. Living beings require relational consent, integration work with responsibility. So everything with form carries mind. Living systems carry that mind plus individuated spark, a soul orb, and a nested geometry called the Merkaba. When I explain this with images, I show the progression. Here's the progression. The template field, the raw pattern, the information grid that gives shape to matter. Water as a substrate, the memory medium that holds imprint and resonance. Animal, soul orb plus Merkaba, the point where individuation emerges, a spark plus nested geometry that creates identity, memory, and agency. Then you always have these assholes. The parasite replicator, the code that hijacks the host rather than carrying the sovereign ensoulment. Because they don't have no soul, baby. What you're looking at here is the path consciousness takes from pattern into personhood. Everything starts as a template, a living pattern in the field. Water holds that pattern like memory. Then life organizes. Animals, plants, humans become vessels for soul orb and Merkaba, the geometry of identity and choice. Parasites are different, the replicators that ride the living systems rather than carry our sovereign spark. And I just want to say this, and so you can see literally how we go here. But, all of us are singing this one song. Remember my video on the Song of Matter and how everything that there is a blueprint, a song, right? This is what they were carrying, the seeds, the blueprints, the Song of Matter. Hope you have a great night. Hope you enjoyed this part. We'll move on to the 52 different soul types in the next videos. Hope you have a great night. Namaste.